painted his house the summer of 1982. He paid me in cash, offered me lemonade, and told me his son was about my age. 3 weeks later, I saw his truck on the news, parked near a body they found in the Green River. Hey, my name is David Chun. I'm from Auburn, Washington, just south of Seattle. Back in the early 80s, I was 17 trying to save money for community college. My dad knew a guy who needed his house painted. Said he was quiet, paid well, didn't ask questions. I took the job. It was summer break, and I needed the money. The house was on Military Road, nothing special, just a small rambler with peeling paint and a yard that needed work. I had no idea who lived there. I had no idea what he was doing at night, while I was scraping old paint off his window frames during the day. His name was Gary Ridgway, and for 2 months, I saw him almost every day. The first day I showed up, Gary answered the door in his work clothes. He was a truck painter at Kenworth. He was maybe late 30s, average height, brown hair, nothing remarkable about him at all. That's what I remember most clearly, how forgettable he looked. He shook my hand. His grip was limp, almost childlike. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You David?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Call me Gary. You need anything, just knock. I work swing shift, so I'm around mornings." He showed me where the ladder was, where the paint was stacked in the garage, and left me to it. Simple enough. But there were things I noticed, small things that didn't mean much at the time. His truck was always clean. Obsessively clean. I'm talking spotless, inside and out. I saw him washing it at 6 in the morning once, scrubbing the wheel wells with a brush like he was trying to erase something. And he had this habit of watching me. Not obviously, not creepy exactly, but I'd be up on the ladder, and I'd glance over, and he'd be standing at the kitchen window, just staring. When I'd wave, he'd wave back and disappear. His wife was around sometimes. Quiet woman, kept to herself. She'd come out to water the plants or bring me a glass of water, but she never really talked. Just nodded. I got the sense she was scared of something, but I didn't know what. About 2 weeks in, Gary started talking to me more. He'd come outside with a beer, always just one, and lean against the porch rail while I worked. He asked me about school, about my family, about girls. Normal stuff, I guess. But the way he asked, it was like he was studying me, like he was learning how to be normal by watching me. One day, he said something I'll never forget. "You ever been with a girl, David?" I was startled. I didn't know what to say. Yeah, sort of. He smiled, that same empty smile. They're all the same, you know. All of them. They want something from you, and when you can't give it to them anymore, they leave. I didn't respond. I just kept painting. "Women think they're better than us," he continued, his voice flat, almost monotone. "But they're not. They're weak. They pretend they're strong, but they're not." I felt my stomach tighten. I mumbled something about needing to move the ladder and climb down. He didn't say anything else. Just went back inside. That night, I told my dad I wanted to quit. He asked me why. "He's weird," I said. "He gives me a bad feeling." My dad sighed. "You signed on for the job, David. Finish it. You need the money." So I kept going, but the feeling didn't go away. A week later, I was working late, trying to finish the back of the house before the weekend. It was maybe 7 or 8 at night, still light out because it was July. Gary's truck wasn't in the driveway, which I was grateful for. I was on the ladder near the top when I heard his garage door open. I looked down. Gary's truck pulled in, slow and careful. He got out, glanced up at me, and nodded. Then he opened the back of the truck bed and pulled out a large black garbage bag. It was heavy. I could tell by the way he carried it, leaning to one side, gripping it with both hands. He took it into the garage and closed the door. I don't know why, but my hands started shaking. I climbed down and packed up my stuff. I didn't want to be there anymore. The next morning, I came back early. The truck was gone again, but the garage door was open. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, stupidity, I don't know, but I walked over and looked inside. The bag was gone, but there was a smell. Faint chemical, like bleach mixed with something rotten. And in the corner, near the workbench, I saw a pair of gloves, rubber gloves, the kind you use for cleaning, soaked in something dark. I backed out and went back to work. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say, but I started paying attention. Gary's schedule was erratic. Sometimes he'd be home all day. Other times he'd leave at odd hours, late at night, early in the morning. I'd see his truck coming and going at 2, 3 in the morning. And then there were the news reports. I didn't watch the news much, but my mom did. And in late July, early August, she started talking about it at dinner. Another girl, she'd say, shaking her head. They found another one near the river. What river? I asked. Green River, down by Kent. They're saying it's a serial killer. I felt cold. What kind of girls? I asked. Prostitutes, mostly. Runaways. Girls nobody's looking for. I thought about Gary. I thought about his truck. I thought about the bag. And I kept painting. It was the second week of August when I saw her. I was finishing the trim on the front porch when a woman walked up the driveway. She was young, maybe early 20s, wearing tight jeans and a tube top. She had bruises on her arms. Gary was in the garage. She knocked on the side door, and he came out, wiping his hands on a rag. They talked for a minute. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw him hand her something, cash, I think, and she nodded. Then she got into his truck, and they drove off. I stood there, frozen, paintbrush in my hand. He came back 2 hours later. Alone. I wanted to ask him where she went. I wanted to ask him what he did. But I didn't. I just kept painting. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her. About the way she looked at him. Like she trusted him. Like she thought he was safe. The next day, I saw another report on the news. They'd found another body. Same area. Same type of girl. I called my dad. I'm done, I said. I'm not going back. David, you're almost finished. I'm not going back, Dad. Something's wrong with that guy. There was a long silence. Okay, he said finally. Okay, I'll talk to him. My dad went over and told Gary I couldn't finish the job. Family emergency, something like that. Gary said it was fine, paid him for the work I'd done, and that was it. I never saw him again. Not in person, anyway. In November of 2001, almost 20 years later, I was living in Portland. I was watching the news with my wife when I saw his face. Gary Ridgway, arrested, charged with 4 murders. My blood went cold. It was him, the same guy, older, grayer, but the same flat eyes, the same empty smile. They called him the Green River Killer. They said he'd killed at least 48 women, probably more. Prostitutes, runaways, teenagers. He'd pick them up, strangle them, dump their bodies in the woods, in the river, in vacant lots. And he'd been doing it the entire time I was painting his house. The summer of 1982. July. August. The exact months I was there. I called the tip line. I told them I'd worked for him, that I'd seen things, the bag, the gloves, the girl. They took my information, said someone might follow up. Nobody ever did. But I watched the trial. I watched every second of it. And when they asked him why he did it, why he killed so many, he said something that made my stomach turn. I picked prostitutes because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught. Not because he hated them. Not because of trauma or rage or some psychological break. Because he thought he could get away with it. That's when I realized he wasn't crazy. He wasn't some monster. He was just empty. A black hole in the shape of a man. And I'd painted his house. Gary Ridgway is still alive. He's serving 48 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He's in his 70s now, locked up in Washington State Penitentiary. But sometimes late at night, I think about that summer. I think about the girl who got into his truck. I think about the bag he carried into the garage. I think about the smell. And I wonder, if I'd said something, if I'd called the police, if I'd told someone, would it have mattered? Would those women still be alive? I've asked myself that question for more than 40 years, and I still don't have an answer. The house on Military Road is still there. Someone else lives in it now. The paint I put on is long gone, covered over by new layers, new colors. But I can still see it in my mind. I can still see him standing in the driveway, watching me work, smiling that empty smile. And I can still hear what he said that day, leaning against the porch with a beer in his hand. They're all the same. All of them. I didn't know what he meant then. I do now. My name is David Chen. I painted a killer's house, and I've been living with that ever since. If you ever feel like something's wrong, if someone gives you that feeling, that cold, creeping feeling in your gut, trust it, because sometimes the worst monsters don't look like monsters at all. Sometimes they look like the guy next door. Gary Ridgway was convicted of 49 murders and confessed to killing as many as 71 women between 1982 and 1998. He remains one of the most prolific serial killers in American history.